Crazy story time about the girl that my dad was having an affair with. So a little background information. My mom and my dad had been married for 10 years. And they had 3 children. Me, who's the oldest, I'm 16. And then my 2 younger sisters. Well, since I was 12 years old, I've lived with my grandma. Because of some personal issues that went on at home. Well, because I lived with my grandma, I barely ever saw my family. Because she lived like an hour away. So I was never in any family photos or anything like that. Well, when I was 15, my dad started coming to my grandma's every Friday and taking me out for pizza. And I thought it was because he just wanted to spend time with me. Well, a few months after he started taking me out for pizza every Friday, I found it really odd that he was getting a hotel for the whole weekend and only seeing me on Fridays. So I had talked to my grandma about it. So my grandma told me that he was having an affair. And she said that she didn't care because she absolutely despised my mom. I didn't tell my dad that I knew because I just thought that it would cause issues between us. Well, the next Friday he came up and we went to the pizza place like for part 2. Part 2 about the girl that my dad was having an affair with. So like I said, a few weeks later, on a Friday, he takes me out for pizza again. Mind you, we go to the same pizza place every single Friday. Well, we sit down, we're waiting for our pizza, and I notice that there's this girl who keeps staring at me. And I'm like brushing it off, thinking that she's just one of those girls who has an RBF, resting bitch face. So once we were done eating, my dad went to pay. But the pizza place that we were at, they only accepted cash and not card. My dad had to go to the bank, which was like 2 doors down, so it really didn't matter. As soon as he got up and walked out that door, the girl who was staring at me the whole time came straight over and sat down where he was sitting. I'm like, hi. And she just starts going off on me, but not so everybody could hear. She's like, what the fuck is your name? Like, is he cheating on me? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm his daughter. She said, no, you're not. He showed me pictures of his daughters before. Like I said before, I wasn't in any family photos. Like for part 3. Part 3 about the crazy ass girl that my dad was having an affair with. So like I said, she comes over, she sits down. She thinks she's confronting me about being just some random girl that my dad's cheating on her with. And then like I had said earlier, I was not in any family photos because I had lived with my grandma for years. So she was like, oh, like, no, he showed me pictures of his kids and stuff like that. So because she thought that I was lying, she went up and tried to fight me. But I grabbed this bitch by her hair and I fucking dragged her. And of course, while I'm beating the shit out of her, my dad walks in. He's like, oh my god, what are you doing to her? Let her go, blah, blah, blah. Everybody else is freaking out at this point. We get kicked out. The cops get called. She goes to jail because originally she put her hands on me. And I decided to press charges. Even though my dad begged me not to. So then I confronted him about the fact that he only came up once a week to spend one Friday with me, but he got a hotel and spent the whole weekend with her. So now I still live with my grandma. I don't see my dad anymore. He's still having an affair with this girl. I'm still really pissed off about it, so I kind of just want to tell my mom what he's doing. Extremely creepy story time on how my aunt passed away. So a little background information. About 5 years ago, my aunt had gotten pregnant. It was really weird because a few months before she got pregnant, the doctor told her that she would never be able to have kids. And her husband had been trying for years. Well, I think like 2 weeks after the baby was born, it had passed away. And I don't really know why. For some reason, my mom won't tell me. Which is weird, but anyways, after that, my aunt just felt like a lot of things weren't going the way that she wanted them to in her life. So she decided to get closer with God. Well, every Sunday night, we go to my grandparents' house for a family dinner. And while we were there, my aunt starts going on this whole rampage. She said that God's not giving her the answers that she needs, and I don't really know what she means by answers. So my grandparents kick her out because she's acting like a psycho. Well, the same night at 3 a.m. in the morning, we hear a knocking on the door. And lo and behold, it's my aunt. So my mom lets her in because she feels bad and feels like she's the only one that will actually listen to my aunt. So she makes everybody sit at the kitchen table. And she pulls out a Ouija board from her bag, like for part 2. Creepy story time about how my aunt passed away, part 2. So like I said, she makes us all sit down at the kitchen table and she pulls out a Ouija board. She was like, I found out how I can get some answers. I just feel like I need you guys around me for positive energy. And my family is very, very religious. Like, we don't fuck with that shit. Because my mom felt bad for her, she let her use it in our house. But my mom didn't want my sisters and I around that, so she just sent us to bed. Well, the next morning, I wake up and I ask my mom what happened with the Ouija board situation. My mom just said that it was really scary, because before she thought it was like a load of bullshit, and she said that her and my dad didn't touch the Ouija board, because like I said, they were very religious and did not mess with that stuff. But apparently, it said for her not to buy a house with the numbers 2815. Well, 2 years later, my aunt got remarried, and her husband ended up having 2 kids. So they bought a new house, and no, it didn't have the numbers on it. One of their kids accidentally shattered the glass door, so they went and got a new one, and it came with those exact numbers on it. 2 days later, the house burnt down and nobody survived. Story time about the scariest night of my life. A lot of background information. So the one weekend, my sister and I decided that we were going to go to my stepdad's, and her best friend was going to come also. I was around 13 at the time. Well, my stepdad and my mom had been broken up for about a few months, but my dad was okay with us going to our stepdad's because he had been with our mom for around 7 years and he's always been good to us. And my stepdad's was 2 hours away. So fast forward, we get to his house, and my sister and her friend wanted to go to a party. Now, me being older now, I knew that they didn't want to bring me because they were around 16 and I was only 13, but I still tried to tag along. Well, they weren't really talking to me or anything, and I hadn't seen my mom in almost a year. So I told my stepdad that I wanted to go and see her, which was a super big deal because she absolutely hated my stepdad. And she didn't want him around us. And by the way, she lived like 5 minutes from him. So if she found out that we went all the way up there to see him and not her, she would have flipped. So he drives me to my mom's house, like for part 2. Part 2 about the worst night of my life. So before I got to my mom's house, I called her. And I pretty much just told her that I was with my stepdad and I wanted to come see her. Like I said, she lived 5 minutes away. So as soon as we pull up, she walks outside. And she starts screaming at my stepdad. She's like, "Those are my kids. You're not allowed to see them, blah, blah, blah." Even though my dad had full custody and he could decide who we could and couldn't see. So after that, we walk in the house. She isn't saying anything. And this house is pretty much like a trap house. There was a knife holding the door shut. Not a kitchen knife, like an actual knife that you stab people with. She's like, "You can sit down, make yourself comfortable." And I didn't want to sit down because I saw needles everywhere and I just saw a rat crawl under the couch. So I was like, "No, I'm fine." And then she was like, "Sorry, not everybody can be rich like you." Which, just to make clear, I'm not rich. I just knew that she was doing drugs with her boyfriend in that house. After that, she pulls the knife that was holding the door shut out and points it right at me, like for part 3. Part 3 about the worst night of my life. So before she points the knife at me, she had been in the kitchen, right? So I went to go and sneak out the door. That's whenever she ran over, ripped the knife out of the door, and pointed it right at me. And she's like screaming a bunch of shit at me. And she's like, "Oh, what, are you gonna tell your dad that I pointed a knife at you?" And I told her, "Yeah, like, what the fuck do you mean? Am I not gonna tell him?" So at this point, she tries to take my phone. I told her, "No, you're not taking my phone." And at this time, my sister's also texting me and yelling at me because she had told me that I should not go to my mom's house. Probably for that exact reason. A few minutes later, she hears her boyfriend pull up. I had never met her boyfriend. Like I said, I haven't seen her in probably almost a year. As soon as she hears him pull up, she looks at me and she says, "Go out the back door." She literally hurries up, takes me to the back door, and I have to run out the back door. I don't even know where I am. My sister and stepdad were waiting at the gas station across the street, so I ran over there really quickly. And then a few things happened after that. Let me know if you guys want a part 4. Part 4 about the worst night of my life. I'm just going to go from my point of view the rest of the time because I texted my sister, but I think she's sleeping. So pretty much I had to call my sister after my mom told her to go out the back door. And there was a Sheetz right across from where she was. But since she had to go out the back, she just saw like all woods and no gas station. So I got on the phone with her. She runs over to the gas station. And when we get back to my stepdad's house, we call our dad and let him know what happened. And the police actually got involved. And they had called my dad because my mom had called them and told him a bunch of stuff that just wasn't true. Like saying that my stepdad was a pedophile and stuff. Just like saying stuff that could actually ruin this man's life. And usually my stepdad would come pick us up and then drop us back off. But the police said that my dad had to come get us tomorrow morning, even though he had full custody and could decide who we could go with and stuff. So my dad came the next day and picked us up.
Story time of how I found out that my 13-year-old sister was sleeping with my teacher and nobody ever did anything about it. So this is the first time that I'm actually telling anybody because I'm finally old enough to realize that all of this was just wrong. So at the time, my sister was in the 8th grade and I was in 6th grade. So my sister claimed that she needed extra help in history, and I guess my mom trusted him because after school he would take me and my sister to his house and then like help my sister. And he would always say he had to get ready before he tutored her because they would like go in the room with the door shut. But he said that was the only way for her to learn best. And while we were waiting for him to get ready, me and my sister would play this literal funnest and like most satisfying game ever. It's where you grow little plant dudes, and me and her literally got so addicted to it. The link to that is also going to be in my bio. And then he would start playing the game with her, trying to get on her good side. And then they make me wait in the living room for about an hour while they study. And every day she would come out saying, "Oh my god, I learned so much today." I mean, she did learn something. Anyways, I'm running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 of how I caught my 13-year-old sister sleeping with her teacher. So continuing on with the story, I was just waiting outside the room until they got done. And one day my mom called me and said that it was an emergency and she had to pick us up early. So I knocked on the door really lightly and then I opened the door. And I'm surprised it wasn't locked. And I opened the door and I see my 13-year-old sister and her 42-year-old teacher just getting it on. I mean, I ain't no snitch, so I didn't say nothing. At the time, I was 11 years old in 6th grade and I high-fived her. Then the teacher bribed me with $500 to not say anything. Again, I was in 6th grade at the time, so my parents would definitely wonder where I got the money from. So the teacher told me that if I let them keep doing their thing, he'll make this fake raffle and say that I won it. Because me and my sister were so close, I never snitched on her. And this is the first time I'm telling the story. Me and my sister don't talk anymore. So if you're that teacher that gave me $500 to keep effing my older sister, you are probably one of the most disgusting people that I've ever met. And if this story gets out there, sorry for saying this, but I need to get this out there. John Wilson, you deserve to rot in jail. Story time of how I found out that my mom was putting our dad's ashes in our food. Yep, our mom would put our dead dad's ashes in our dinner. So basically, after my dad died, my mom showed zero emotion. It's like she really didn't care at all. Like she kind of wanted it to happen. His death was like an unsolved case, and nobody knows how he actually died. And now that I get to think about it, it might have been my mom, but I don't want to jump to conclusions. And if it was her and she sees this video, I don't want to end up like him. Anyways, back to the story. So about a month after he died, she would always post a picture of me and my brother's dinner with the caption, "You'll always be with them." Literally every single night. And honestly, nobody really caught on. All the comments were like, we're praying, this and that. Until one day I was just sitting on the couch and I look over and my mom was pouring something into the mashed potatoes. So I go a little closer and I see her pouring the ashes of my dad into our mashed potatoes. Listen, this story only gets 10 times worse, so like for a part 2. Part 2 of how my mom was putting my dad's ashes in me and my brother's dinner. Continuing on with the story, after I see her literally pouring my dad's ashes into our mashed potatoes, and I mean, this lady literally sees me staring at her pouring the ashes into our mashed potatoes, and she like doesn't even say anything. I was just, a little shocked. So after that, I just kept quiet until after dinner, and I was mad at my brother that night, so I just let him eat the mashed potatoes. So after dinner, I went up to my mom and asked her why she was putting our dad's ashes in our food. And her exact words were, "Your father was a bad man. He wasn't meant to be here." I said, "What does that have to do with you putting his ashes in our dinner?" She goes, "It will just cleanse your soul. The witches told me to feed my children's father to them." Bishwe? I ended up telling my brother, but then me and him decided not to ever say anything ever again because we don't want her little spirits telling them to do the same thing with us, so... Story time of how my dad decided he was gonna cook my cat. Yes, you heard me correctly, my dad decided to cook my cat in the oven. Just a heads up, this story does end up getting a little crazy. So me and my best friend are neighbors. So about 9 a.m. every morning, me and my best friend, we meet up and we work out. We use the app Fitness Coach. And just a little off topic really quick, that app is literally amazing. Me and her have gotten our dream bodies from it. And the link to that will also be in my bio. But anyways, back on track. We meet up every morning and we do our workout. And then afterwards, we come inside for like a lunch/breakfast. Mind you, my dad absolutely hated my cat to begin with. So one day we come in about 30 minutes earlier than we usually do. And we see my dad shaving my cat. He told me that something was wrong with her and all her fur was gonna fall off anyways. And I believe him because why would I think my dad's gonna cook my cat? He said he was gonna take care of it. So I run to my room and I start crying because my cat's hurt. So 20 minutes of crying goes by. And I come out to see my dad trying to cook my kitty. Oh my god, time like for part 2. Part 2 of how my dad was gonna cook my cat. So then I walk into my kitchen and I see my dad literally trying to cook my cat. My cat is in the oven, just laying there. So I start freaking out. I literally start screaming and panicking and my dad is laughing his butt off. Like crazy type laugh. I grab my cat out of the oven and it's literally not moving. And he tells me that he gave it some type of shot to make it like the shot makes the cat get injected out of the game. So basically the cat won't live no more. If he hated the cat, why didn't he just put it down or give it away or not cook it? This may be a little detail, but my cat's head decided to expand because of the heat. Yeah, probably the most traumatizing experience I've ever had. Oh, I do not live with my dad anymore. Honestly, I was scared he was going to try to cook me next. My mom never did anything about it. Mom, if you see this, you're literally just as crazy as he is. And the minute I turn 18, I'm out of this house. And all I have to say is, Dad, if you're seeing this, I literally hope somebody cooks you in the oven or in a big old melting pot like the witches do. Story time of how I found out that my little sister's teacher hid cameras in their bathroom. So my sister at the time was in 2nd grade and they have bathrooms inside their classroom. Well, it's just one bathroom inside the classroom that they all use. And at that school, 4th grade and below, every single classroom has a bathroom inside the room so the kids don't have to wander the halls. So parents' conferences that night started at 6 o'clock and ours was scheduled for about 6:30. But we ended up not being able to make it at 6:30 because we had to do something, so we ended up coming around 7:45. Which at the time, everybody was already gone. So we go, and my parents sit down with the teacher, and they talk. We had gone to Sonic before that, and I got a blue raspberry slushie, and I ended up spilling that all over the floor. So I run into the bathroom, and I grab a bunch of paper towels, and right when I got in there, something just felt really weird to me. So after I cleaned it up, I walked back into the bathroom, and in the top right of the bathroom, in the corner, there was a box with a hole in it. I text my mom what I saw, and right after I get out of the bathroom, she says she has to go to the bathroom. I'm running out of time, like, for this crazy part 2. Part 2 of how I found out that my sister's teacher was hiding cameras in their bathroom. So continuing on with the story, my mom goes into the bathroom, and I'm not sure what she did in there, but my crazy mother comes out with the box that was around the camera, cussing, and I could not get her to stop yelling. The teacher then says that they have that in there for safety reasons. They have a camera in a 2nd grader's bathroom for safety reasons. Yeah, okay. Anyways, my mom was really mad, and they ended up calling the non-emergency number for the police. So then when they got there, they had to search his phone. I don't know what the police really do in this type of situations, but they ended up searching his phone. And on his phone, they found recordings of the students in the bathroom, and they found zoomed-in screenshots from the recordings of the children's private areas. My sister's teacher had also had recordings of other teachers using the bathroom, and zoomed-in pictures of their private areas. Yes, this teacher is in jail, and I'm pretty sure there might be an online article about it. But it's crazy to think that a disgusting person like this would set up cameras in a child's bathroom.
Story time of how I caught my dad and my stepdad sleeping together. So a little background information, my mom and my real dad got a divorce when I was around 4. So like the typical, on the weekdays I'd be at my mom and on the weekends I'd be at my dad's. Then when I was around age 6, my mom married my stepdad. And since they got married at such a young age, I called my stepdad dad and my real dad dad. This story ends up with a lot of confusion and chaos, so just get ready for that. So everything started to get a little weird when my stepdad went to go drop me off at my dad's house one day. My stepdad actually went into my dad's house and they talked for about like 5 hours. You see, I went to sleep and then the next morning my stepdad and my dad were both making me breakfast. And then I overheard my stepdad on the phone with my mom saying that he had an overnight shift. So I didn't say anything because every time I tell my mom something, she ends up believing my stepdad anyways. Because I mean, my stepdad's always right? Anyways, the next time that he dropped me off, my stepdad ended up staying again. Then I ended up walking into my dad's room seeing both of their pants off. I'm running out of time, like, for part 2. Part 2 of how I caught my dad and my stepdad sleeping together. Continuing on with the story, I asked my dad a question, so I walk into his room and I see my dad and my stepdad's pants off. One was laying down, the other was... You guys get the point. My dad quickly jumps off the bed and he jumps up so fast that he falls off the bed and he goes, honey, it's not what it looks like. And then my stepdad said, get out. So I thought it was funny, so I took a picture and I sent it to my mom because I knew she wouldn't believe me if I didn't have proof. And then she went crazy and tried to kill both of them because, he cheated on her. Then she ended up in like a mental hospital. They declared her crazy or something. So I don't see her anymore. And now I have 2 gay dads, and let me tell you, it's probably the best thing in the world. So basically, to sum it up, my stepdad cheated on my mom with my dad, and then my mom went crazy trying to kill my stepdad and my dad. Then she ended up in a mental hospital, so now I don't see her anymore. And yeah, I have 2 dads now. Now they got married, and yeah, I'm pretty happy. Even though she's crazy, I kind of miss my mom.
This is why it's better to have one friend that you hang out with regularly instead of having a big group of friends. And trust me, you're going to want to listen to this story time. So when I was a sophomore in high school, I was kind of going through an identity crisis, and low-key still am. I went to a predominantly white school for the majority of my life, so let's just say I was extremely whitewashed. It was one of those times in my life where if a white person said the N-word around me, I would just laugh. Not because I didn't know it was wrong, but because I wanted to be accepted and I wanted to be like everybody else, and I seeked validation. Sophomore year was really when I started to become who I am today. I wanted to learn way more about my culture and my background. So I started becoming friends with people from other schools that are more diverse. Eventually, I met this group of girls. And I thought these girls were going to be the sweetest girls I would ever meet. Now, this friend group was serving flavor. I'm talking diverse to the T. One night, we decided that we were going to spend the night at one of the girls' houses. Let's call this girl Sally. I kept getting lost on the way to Sally's house, and I thought it was because I didn't know the area that well. Keep in mind, that's what I thought was the reason. I get there and we watch like 4 or 5 movies before I end up falling asleep. And when I wake up, I was in a room full of grown-ass men staring at me. Storytime part 2 of why it's better to have one loyal friend instead of a big group of friends. I forgot to mention in part 1 that when I arrived, the men were already there. Mind you, we were in sophomore year. These men looked like they were in college. So I was already a little thrown off, but I trusted it because I was with my friend. When I wake up, these men are like staring at me, but they try to look away really fast, but I could tell that they were staring at me. I start thinking the worst of the worst. I try to think of any possible way that I could get out of there, whether it was physically or mentally. So I pretend to fall asleep just to escape the reality of it. But then one of the men at the bottom of the bed starts rubbing my feet. I immediately kick my leg so I can get his hands off. Now I'm thinking he's gonna be mad and I'm gonna get fucking attacked. So I try to make small talk to loosen the tension. So I look at the guys and I'm like, hey, do you know where the girls went? One of them looks at me and says, oh, they went home. So I'm like, I thought this was Sally's house. And they say nothing. So at this point, I think I'm being set up. I try my best to not make it seem like I'm suspicious of them. I casually act like I need to pee. Walk into the bathroom and I see a window. Automatically something clicks in my mind, get the fuck out of there. Making part 3 right now. Part 3 of why you should have one loyal friend instead of hanging out with a big group of friends. So I go into the bathroom and there's a window. I'm thinking to myself, I would be so dumb. I would be so extremely incredibly stupid to go back into that room full of grown ass men that I've never met before, instead of making my escape through that window right here, right now. So I trusted my gut and I got the fuck out of there. Mind you, I'm in my PJs right now. No shoes, no socks. I'm making my great escape. Call me Pablo Escobar. While I was doing all of it, I was in disbelief. Like, I cannot believe that I'm escaping like right now. Like, this is actually insane. Like, I did what I believed was right at the moment. And honestly, that decision might be the reason why I'm alive right now. So I make a run for it. I immediately run to the front of the neighborhood. I hide behind some trees and then I call my sister. I call my sister instead of my parents because my mom was the one who drove me there. And if she knew that something bad happened, she wouldn't have let me go out again. I'm frantically explaining everything on the phone to my sister. She literally speeds to come get me. Once she gets there, I immediately hop in her car and we get the fuck out of there. On our way home, I get a text from Sally. Last part is part 4. I'm making that right now. Part 4 of why you should have one loyal friend instead of having a big group of friends. So I'm on my way home and I get a text from Sally. Hey girl, where are you? We went to the gas station to get some milkshakes. You could have came with, but you were already asleep. I didn't even respond. I just blocked all of them because I know damn well that they were not getting milkshakes. Because one, why didn't they wake me up to get milkshakes? Because I wasn't the first person to fall asleep. I'd never fall asleep first at somebody's house with a big group of people. I saw somebody else who looked like they were sleeping, so I thought that I was good to fall asleep too. Two, why were all those grown ass men there? Nobody told me that they were going to be there. Like I said, we were sophomores. These men were in college. Maybe even graduated from college. They were grown. 3, why would she lie about it being her house? 4, why did the boy say she went home? I remember when I said I kept getting lost because I didn't know the area. Once I went back to look through the messages that I had with those girls to see if there was anything fishy going on, I noticed that they were all sending me different addresses. Either one number would be off or a letter would be off. They definitely were planning something because they were trying to get me there late. I haven't seen or talked to those girls since then. This is why you should never let social media fame control your life. This is the story of the boy who lured his neighbor to his death for TikTok clout. 19-year-old 𝚜𝚑𝚋𝚘𝚋𝚘𝚔 would harass his neighbors for 2 years until they finally had enough. Lots of events led up to this incident, many involving 𝚜𝚑's reckless driving. 𝚜𝚑 was emancipated at 17, joined the National Guard, and then moved in with his grandparents. And immediately he started having conflicts with his neighbors. His neighbors were the Durhams, and they were upset with how reckless 𝚜𝚑 would drive past their house. 𝚜𝚑 would purposely taunt his neighbors to get reactions out of them and record it in hopes that he could post it and gain some TikTok clout. Pretty sure his account got banned, so I'll be posting his videos on my Instagram story so my video doesn't get taken down. One day, 𝚜𝚑 posted a video on TikTok of an argument he had with the neighbor's wife, calling her a Karen, and the video got 3 million views. The comments on the video were encouraging 𝚜𝚑 to continue to mess with his neighbors. And in a desperate attempt for fame, that's exactly what he did. But he continued with his reckless driving. A former National Guard continues to terrorize the safety of his community for views. Yet when he called the police, he painted himself as the victim. Police didn't interfere, so the situation turned deadly. You won't believe what happens next. Part 2 of why you should never let social media fame control your life. The story of the boy who lured his neighbor to his death for TikTok clout. So 𝚜𝚑 continues to terrorize his neighbors. Since the video of him calling his neighbor a Karen went viral, he thought it was his time to shine. Mind you, the neighbors reported him to the police several times. They said that there was nothing that they could do because coronavirus caused all the courts to be closed. 𝚜𝚑 had even tried to run over the neighbor's son with his car. This kid was crazy, like actually insane. He already had a criminal record. After 𝚜𝚑 tries to run over the neighbor's son, Mr. Durham, the dad, drives onto the road to block 𝚜𝚑's car. I mean, at this point, Mr. Durham was probably thinking, okay, the police won't do anything. It's been 2 years and this kid is still messing with us. Time to take matters into my own hands. And that decision resulted in brutal death. So then 𝚜𝚑 speeds back to his house and runs inside. On his front porch, his girlfriend is already standing there. She's recording this whole thing. And why is she standing there and recording? Because her and 𝚜𝚑 planned this whole thing. They could record it and put it on TikTok. The neighbor's whole family follows 𝚜𝚑 back onto his property. 𝚜𝚑 comes out of his house with a stun gun and several knives. Part 3 of why you should never let social media fame control your life. Story of a boy who lured his neighbor to his death for TikTok clout. So Zach comes out of his house with a stun gun and several knives. Mr. Durham tries to grab Zach. Zach slashes Mr. Durham's arm with his knife. Zach then runs away into his garage. Mr. Durham follows Zach into his garage. Zach then fires his stun gun at Mr. Durham several times, and then proceeded to attack him and stab him under the armpit, which punctured his lung. And that resulted in Mr. Durham's death. The whole incident was caught on video because Zach's girlfriend was recording. She later on told the police that she recorded because she wanted it to go viral. And somehow, after brutally murdering a man, Zach calls the police and paints himself as the victim. This is part of the 911 call. What he says will shock you.
911, where's your emergency? There's blood all over the place. I just got assaulted and jumped. Are you the one that got stabbed? No, that was the other victim, but I got beat up really bad and I had blood all over me.
I literally want to cry. So if you didn't know, I have a sister and her name's Ashley. And we both have boyfriends. And every night we both fall asleep on the phone with our boyfriends. So one day we're all hanging out and we're like just talking. And my sister's boyfriend looks at me and he's like, "You need to stop going into your sister's room in the middle of the night." And I look at him and I'm like, "What are you talking about? I don't have a reason to go into her room. Like I don't go into her room, especially in the middle of the night." Then my boyfriend hops in the conversation and he's like, No. He's like, "No, I hear Ashley go into Kayla's room every night and stare at her." So me and my sister both look at each other and we're like, we don't go into each other's rooms, do we? And we agreed that we do not. And they said this has been going on for months. So for months, somebody or something has been going into me and my sister's room for about 15 minutes every night and watching us sleep. But it only gets worse.
Story time about how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So just some background information. My husband and I got engaged 2 years ago. And this whole situation happened a month after we got married. So fast forward, it's a Sunday morning. Well, usually every week on Sunday, I clean the whole house. So I woke up, went into the bathroom to take my ring off, and I could not get it off. Mind you, I had gained a little bit of weight since my husband and I got engaged. Anyways, I tried butter, I tried soap, I tried everything, even oil. So after trying to get it off for an hour straight, my finger was 3 times bigger than it usually is. So at this point, I'm really scared that I'm going to have to get it cut off. Because 1, I didn't want to ruin it, and 2, it was really expensive. So I call my husband and he's like, "Oh, call your dad. Firefighters always know what to do." So I called my dad and thank God he lived 5 minutes away because he drove over really quickly. Like for part 2. Part 2 of how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So like I said, my dad lived 5 minutes away, so he just rushed over to my house. And we tried a few more things to get it off. We tried Windex, we tried the dental floss, none of it was working. So my dad told me that we were going to have to cut it off with pliers. So he comes over with the pliers, cuts the ring off. Well, a few days later, I had taken it to the same place that we got it to get the band fixed. Or replaced. While I was there, I decided to get it appraised, just for insurance reasons. So a few days later, I go and pick up my ring, and when I get home, I look at the appraisal. It was not the same one that I had picked out in the store. It looked exactly like it, but there was like a $20,000 price difference. So right now, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not mad about the money part. I'm more mad that my husband lied to me. I was more upset about the fact that he had lied to me. So I had made dinner reservations for the next night, so that way I could hopefully bring up the conversation about it, like for part 3. Part 3 of how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So like I said, I had made reservations for him and I to go out to dinner so that way I could hopefully spark up the conversation about it. So when we finally sat down, I had started up the conversation. I had told him that when I took my ring in to get it fixed, I also got it appraised. And his face immediately changed after that, but he wasn't saying anything. He was like, "Oh, okay, how did that go?" So at this point, I was tired of beating around the bush, and I was like, "Why wouldn't you just tell me if we were having money troubles?" And he was like, "What do you mean? We're not having any money troubles. I'm fine." One thing about my husband is that he is very wealthy, and he takes pride in the fact that he is very wealthy. So obviously, me right there kind of questioning his wealth, he fucked up and told me the truth. He was like, "Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I accidentally gave the ring that I was supposed to give you to a girl I was seeing at the time, and I just never got around to replacing yours." So fast forward to present day, I am currently moving all of my stuff out of our house and filing for divorce.